Well, hello, Madcappers. Today we're going to learn how to make the big one, and I mean our best-selling hat, the Sunblocker. Yes, the Sunblocker. A fabulous hat that everybody just loves. The Sunblocker has a flattering wide brim that looks great turned up or down, and you can adjust the fit with the built-in tie and toggle drawstring at the back of the hat. Today I'm going to show you how to make it over the course of making 2 of these hats, and you're going to make it with either your free version of the pattern, or we have a full pattern in 4 head sizes for a nominal fee, available on our website or our Etsy store. All the links are below in the description. The full size pattern in 4 sizes comes with full size pattern pieces, as well as a full color booklet that gives you step-by-step instructions and links back to this video. And each version has a line page on the first page for you to measure, just to check the output of your printer, because there's nothing worse than printing out a pattern and finding out you used fit to page or something that made your pages print too small. First we're gonna fold over those edges, or cut away the edges to just leave the black boxes, and we'll match the circles and the diamonds if there's a second row, which there is in the hat pieces. And the brim edge and all the pattern pieces in the full set have a shadow around the outside so that you can adjust the seam width if you take a bigger one than I do. And I start by giving all my fabrics a good pressing. And today I'm using the Ultra Hold Heat and Bond because I'm using thicker fabric, but the lightweight works great too. I'm using 28 inches or 3/4 of a meter of heat and bond, and I'm going to start by putting the glue side next to the wrong side of the fabric that I'm using for the top of my brim, which is my white twill in this case. And my paper is next to the wrong side of the fabric that's going to be the underside of my brim, which is this blue denim. So I'm looking at the right side of the blue denim. I'm going to pin my brim pattern piece on top, and I just showed you how you can lay out 2 very quickly. So I'll take away this blue piece after I finish cutting it, and we're going to work on the side that has the fuse. But before we fuse, we're going to just fold up about a 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters from each side at the back of the brim. So where our back brim seam is going to be, we're going to cut away some of that heat and bond before we fuse it to the white fabric, and we'll keep 1 piece because we're going to use it soon. And I'm just going to follow the instructions from my fuse to set the glue on that top brim piece. And I'm going to leave the paper on, and you can see it's shiny underneath the paper. And I'm going to put the right sides of my white brim piece, my top brim piece, together. And I'm going to clip away from where I'm going to sew by using my 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter wide seam, which is normal for me. I'm going to sew those 2 edges together. And afterwards, I'm just going to finger press them open, and I've left the paper on still. And I'm laying the end of my other brim piece, my blue denim, right across that seam and across those open edges. And since they were cut out at the same time in that same configuration, they should fit together very well. And I'm just going to use clips to hold that edge in place. And I'm just going to sew alongside that open edge, creating a top stitch underneath. And that's how it looks. And now the next step is to remove the paper from the rest of the white brim. And I'm just going to slowly work around the edge of my brim, clipping the 2 pieces together. And I'll work my way around, smoothing them out and trying to match them evenly until I get back to that back seam edge. And what I'll be left with is a little bit of that raw edge of that brim, which I can fold over, and I'll give it a quick press to create a folded edge. And now I'm going to start to fuse the 2 layers together using my iron and working around the brim in sections, smoothing the 2 layers of fabric as I go, and trying hard not to create any bubbles or wrinkles. And I'll give that back seam that I've turned over another quick press. And now I'm going to go around a second time and look for any errors like this one. And while the fuse is still warm, it's easy to fix at this stage. So I'll just pull it apart slightly and then give it another pressing. Now I'm going to cut down one of those edge offcuts to create a little narrow fuse piece to help close that open brim edge. And I will add it with my iron. And now I will take away the paper and just position that folded edge so that it's going to close up all my work underneath and give me a nice finished edge. And now I'm going to just finish that edge with a top stitch, which is going to be on the other side of that seam. And no one will ever guess that we used fuse to finish that edge at the back of our hat. All right, now we're ready to do the band, and I'll prepare the band fabric by giving it another blast of steam and heat. You need about 1/4 of a yard or 1/4 of a meter of quilting weight fabric or something slightly heavier, and about the same for whatever you're going to use as your lining. And I'm using polycotton broadcloth for my lining and a very pretty cotton quilting weight fabric for my outside. And once again, I'm going to cut all those layers together, but we're also going to use 2 layers of stabilizer in our band construction. One will be a medium weight, 1 size fusible stabilizer that's going to go right behind that floral fabric. And then another layer will be a sew-in heavyweight stabilizer. And because I make this so much, I have made myself a heavyweight poster board outline of my band piece, which is easy for me just to trace around. And you notice those 2 notches are where we're going to be putting the cord. But while they're in a pile like this, I layered them so that the glue from the fusible interfacing is just behind on the wrong side of that floral fabric. So I'm going to fuse them together. And I've got my sew-in layer underneath, and they were all cut out at the same time, so all those edges should match. And I'm going to go all the way around with an edge stitch and also add a piece of cord for my drawstring, and the cord will be about 1 yard or 92 centimeters long, and we'll cut it to size when we're finished. And you go back and forth over those edges. You're just going to tuck them in from underneath. We're working on the wrong side of our band, and go back and forth to give them some extra strength. And then I also apply another layer of stitching just about 1 1/4 inches up or 3 centimeters from that bottom edge, and it could be a decorative top stitch like this. I use this fancy wave pattern on all my sunblockers from my fancy stitch machine. But you can do a straight stitch like I did on the other band. And with both of these options, we're working from the back of the band, and the cord is attached to the right side of the band. And I'm just going to finish this one by going around all the edges with an edge stitch. And we'll close the back of the band, sewing the right sides together through all those layers. And we'll use our normal seam width. And then we will finger press them open, and that back seam, we're going to add a top stitch to either side. So down one side, pivot, and come back down the other side. And our seam's going to be nice and flat and comfortable against our head in our hat. And at this point, I'll clip a center front notch on both the bottom and the top edges of the band. And I'll clip a center front notch on the inside of the fused brim as well. And now we're ready to start attaching our band to our brim. So we'll match the notches and the seams and ease the band, the right side facing the right side of the outside of the brim, which is the white fabric. And we will sew those two pieces together with our normal seam width, matching up that raw edge on the right side as we go around. And as you can see, my magnetic seam guide is just built for this job. It's quite helpful. And I'll go all the way around and just over sew from where I started at the back. And it looks like we're starting to get a hat. So we'll prepare our lining by sewing the two back short end sides together, that back seam. And if you have a right side and a wrong side, you're going to sew right sides together. The normal seam width, and then I'm going to place those two raw edges off to one side and just sew a one line top stitch, catching that seam and lying it flat. And then I'll cut a center notch on the top and the bottom of my lining. And I'm going to place the lining against the underside brim, so the other side of my brim, and I'm matching those right sides together and the notches and the seams, and I'll ease it in all the way around. And because the brim is quite sturdy with the fuse, I like to use clips, so you'll see me use a lot of clips in this tutorial. And now we're going to just sort of follow that line that we made, sewing the band onto the white side of the hat. And we're just going to sew the lining onto the blue brim side of the hat, which will end up being the inside of the hat. So I'm just sort of following along that same seam. And when I'm done, I'm going to pull the band and the lining away from the brim and match the seams and the front notches on the top band edge. And I'll just smooth it out with my fingers, and I will clip as I go or pin. And the next step is to sew those two layers together with an edge stitch that's about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters wide. Trim any little bits of extra fabric popping out or any pieces of thread. And our cord is firmly attached. We just need a top. So now to prepare our distinctive top. And we're going to cut in layers again. So the top is made with our pretty floral fabric, our medium weight one side, fusible interfacing, and some lining. So I'm just going to attach the fusible interfacing to the back of our floral fabric. And our top is quite distinctive. It's cut in two pieces with a center seam that runs from the front to the back. And this seam gives the top a very comfortable curved shape. And that shape mimics the shape of the top of our heads. This gives a very finished professional look that looks like it was made on a hat block. But you can make it on your sewing machine without the expensive equipment, folks. So we're going to sew the right sides together from one end of the center seam to the other with our normal 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter wide stitch. And we're working on the outside piece first. We'll open it up, and we're going to open the back of the seam so the raw edges are flat. And guess what? We're going to top stitch down each side of that seam. And I'm using a white thread so that it'll blend into the fabric that's basically got a white background. But if you're skilled at sewing and you want to go funky, then by all means use a fun color. And we're going to repeat the same process for the lining, except I just did one-sided top stitch like I did for the back of the lining band piece. And with the wrong sides together, I'm going to match the seam ends. And then working from the right side on the outside of the hat, the side that has all the fuse behind it because it's sturdier, I'm just going to sew those two pieces together with a stitch close to the edge. And now I'm going to match the right sides and the seams and the notches, and I'm going to pin and clip and start to sew my top onto the rest of my hat body. So I'm going to sew with a normal seam width, lining up the raw edges on the right hand side of my foot. And I'm going to take my time and I'm going to use my favorite sewing tool, which is my magnetic seam guide, to rest those raw edges beside and line them up. And I'm trying not to pull on any of the pieces as I go around. It's a pretty well matched fit, but there is some flexibility to ease it in if you find you're a little short on one of the pieces. And then for the best results, if you just stop when you're almost finished and just check to make sure that your seam has a consistent depth. Now I'm going to smooth that seam flat with my hand, and you can finish the edge with a pinking shear cut or a zigzag or an overcast or with your serger. And I'm going to use my serger to finish that edge, and I'm going to add another row of top stitching, which is optional. This is the presser foot that I'm going to use for this optional row of top stitching. It's deeper on one side, and that'll be the side that will be running alongside the top of the hat. And I'm going to move my thick top seam edge, which is lying flat underneath my presser foot, all towards the band side of my hat, so that that seam bulk is on the band side running down alongside the side of the hat when I'm finished. And as I go, I'll smooth the fabric down on both sides of the seam while I'm working my way around, and look how nice that looks. But you don't have to do it. This is one that I didn't do it to, and it looks great too. So the top stitch is optional. You choose. All right, our last steps. We're going to put the edge on our brim. So that's your measurements if you're going to cut out this piece on your own. In your pattern package, you'll find that there's a full-size brim edge on the paid pattern. And I'm going to cut 2 of them at once, just like I do with the brim. I find it saves time and money to cut 2 layers. But we only need 1 layer for 1 hat. And the edge is cut on the diagonal, and those sloped ends help to run alongside the grain or the fold of your fabric to determine the diagonal. And now we're going to sew those 2 ends together. So we're going to put the right sides together and pin those 2 ends together along their angles, leaving an obvious overlap about the width of your seam. So at 2 ends I have 2 V's, a V at each end I should say. So I'm going to start the seam at the bottom of one of the V's on one side and sew to the V on the other. And I'm going to open up the seam on the wrong side, and wait for it, guess what we're going to do? We're going to top stitch that seam flat. So up one side, pivot, and come back down the other. And that spreads the bulk out on that seam perfectly to create a beautiful edge for the brim of our hat. So now we're going to fold that piece in half lengthwise, and we'll bring those 2 raw edges together, and we're going to serge, zigzag, or use another stitch that will allow for some stretch to finish and close that open raw edge. So I'm working from underneath the brim on the underside of the brim, and I'm going to center that angled back seam on my brim edge to the back seam of my brim. And you'll see as I'm clipping that the length of my brim edge is slightly less than the edge of the hat. So we're going to ease it in, and we're going to pull on it slightly as we work our way around with our first seam. So there are 4 rows of sewing to attach and finish our brim edge. So row 1 is an edge stitch about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters wide. And as we go around, we'll just match up the edge of our brim edge piece and the edge of our fused brim. Now row 2 is just a hair over 1/2 inch or 14 millimeters wide, and it's further inside the brim alongside row 1, about the width of our presser foot. And you're going to pull the edge piece away once you finish row 2, pull it out and away from the hat brim, and use your fingers to roll that edge over the edge of the brim. So the fold in the brim edge is now on the other side of the hat brim. And as you roll it over, smooth the layers under your fingertips and clip in place as you work your way around. And so now we flip the hat over and we're working on the other side of the hat brim. So we're working on the top brim side. If this was the blue and white brim, we would see the white brim underneath our brim edge, and our brim edge would be blue. And we're doing that stitch about 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimeters up from the edge. And now we're going to move our magnet so we can do row 4, and it's about 1/2 inch or 12 millimeters from the brim edge, but we're going to make sure that it doesn't go further than that folded edge that's underneath the left side of our presser foot. It's about the width of the presser foot away from row 3. Now we're going to add a toggle. We're going to trim the cord. We're going to knot the ends, and we will tie those ends into a pretty bow. Sun protection with style, folks. Comments and questions, please leave them below for a prompt reply from yours truly. And my name is Tori Capes. I'm a certified milliner, and I've had a 36-year career in the hat business, making original designs and patterns and selling thousands of hats, mostly in Canada, but they're all over the world. So we're going to explore some more possibilities for this pattern in an upcoming video. There will be a part 2, so stay subscribed, stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support and the love that you're giving this humble milliner. We're having a great time sharing our passion for hats and our patterns and designs with all of you from all over the world, and it really is all over the world. Thank you so much for your channel memberships, which we're just starting, your Patreon memberships, and your super thanks. They're also greatly appreciated, and I'll make a list for our next video because we'll be celebrating 5,000 subscribers in our first year anniversary, which will be coming up with the next video. So happy sewing, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.